All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order for the Well Springs Unified Union School District Board of Directors meeting for August. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So our business is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make that motion.
I hear that from Meredith. I heard static too. Is that on your end? I think there's something wrong with your microphone.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Or signify. There you go.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Public comment. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak? Adam Parker, go ahead.
It's actually Alicia Parker. It comes up as my husband's name. I just have a question about the winter sports program through at Middletown Springs. I've heard rumblings around town that it's potentially being cut because of funding, and I just was curious if there was any truth to that.
Okay, I'm not sure, but I think one of our administrators could probably reach out to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say answer now?
Sure.
Yeah, no, at this point, we're not anticipating getting rid of the program.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you had an answer.
Still winter sports.
We are still planning on winter sports. The challenge is always securing a bus and a driver. That's the challenge that we have this year. It's not financial that we're concerned about.
Great. All right, excellent. All right, is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, moving on to consent agenda. We have the minutes for July 10th, warrant 354, 356, and 358. Motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda. All right, I'll move the approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Let's see, move on to personnel. Let's see, we didn't have. Were there any professional? I didn't think there was any professional in there. And this is just it's informational. You don't need a motion to approve that right? Just for clarification. Usually we do, but. I was going to read it, but I can't find it. Thank you. Oh. Okay, yeah. All right, and for resignations, we have Sue Wagner and Scott Hathaway. Would someone care to make a motion to accept those resignations? Maybe with regret. Motion by Meredith. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion Carries unanimously. All right, superintendent's report. There's not much to,
Yeah, it's summertime. There are a few items in here. Most of this is informational. I just want to remind everyone that a copy of each school's 5-year capital maintenance plan has been placed in the drive for your reference. We will be discussing this as a board in September, so it gives you an opportunity to a good amount of time to kind of think about them. And if there are any questions prior to the September board meeting, you can just reach out to Carol or myself, so we have that information or good answer your questions ready to go for that meeting. Also in the drive, Carol Corey placed just a copy of the parent student handbooks just for your review as well. So, and I know that there is just the DCB updates, and really for Middletown Springs and Wells, there's nothing really to report outside of their testing windows. Are still where they're at, which is Middletown Springs is scheduled to test July 1st through September 30th of 2025. So next summer, and Wells is that following winter, January 1st to March 31st, 2026. So if there are any changes to the schedules or funding or anything else through this next session, we will keep the board updated, the community updated as well.
any questions? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move right along to the monthly finances. Anyone have any questions in regards to those? All right. Old business. So stemming from our last conversation about the email communication that we're trying to put in place to reach other members of the community. I don't know if other board members received the first communication that went out, and basically that's kind of the idea behind it. Yeah, Mary.
Hi, just really quickly, I went over it, once when I got it, and then just the second time, just, a quick thing that my last name is wrong and my email address is just my personal one. But I mean, I know this is we're just kind of in the first stages of making this email chain available. But when I talk to friends and family, they're like, oh, great. Like, how can I sign up? So there is interest in becoming a part of this thread. So I thought I would just throw that out there real quick.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The sign up is on the website. That's the easiest place to go. And it's pretty seamless as far as signing up on the Wells Village School page or the Middletown Springs School page. It's right there on the landing page on the right-hand side. So, yeah, I mean, anyone who's interested, by all means, tell them, because the more people who are signed up for this, they're going to receive this information, and all the information, like we discussed before, it's available online, but it's all contained in an email. And that's kind of why we included board members in this, so you can see what it looks like. And basically, I think the next step is like feedback. Are there any changes, any additions to what Amanda and Matt have worked on for this email communication? And I know there's some other ideas for this as well, but yeah, the more people who sign up, I think the more successful it will be, especially those who aren't directly related with the school. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Yep. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was going to add that it sort of bleeds into the next item on the agenda, which is community forum. So in addition to sending out these monthly emails, which has, the next agenda, the meeting minutes, etc., we were thinking occasionally we would send out special notices, and one of them might be a notice to everybody who subscribes that a community forum is happening. So Amanda has some ideas about what that would look like and what the content would be. Amanda, if you want to share.
I don't think Amanda's
Is not on here?
Yeah,
Okay. Whoops.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If we lose one person, we got to stop. All right. Yeah, exactly. I think, well,
When we get into the, I guess the next item about the community forum, we can talk about what, I can see if I can find her email, but what we want to draft in terms of communication.
Yeah.
yeah,
And Eric,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, not trying to. The only other thing that kind of came up with the email thread was that it states like our school board membership, and then our term, and then also like the community that we reside in. But it wasn't. I don't know if it was exactly, and I'm not even sure if I know the answer to this question. Like, who can run for what position when? So say, like a school board position comes up, and it's you know what I mean? Like, and you preside in Wells right now, is that school board member position up in both communities, or is it just, I'm not exactly sure how like the legalities work as far as that goes.
yeah. So the way our district model work is that we have 3 members from each town and then 1 at-large position, which that 7th seat can be from anyone from each town.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah,
And then the idea would be like you're running in Wells, but Middletown Springs residents can also vote for your position. Is that true?
yeah, because we're a district. Yep.
Right. No,
Yeah.
it would be. Would it be at large? But I was just like
No,
wondering.
everybody votes for all positions.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thanks, Meredith.
Yeah, so was there something you wanted to change on that chart? Again, it's just information.
Yeah, no, honestly, like a parent asked me, and I honestly didn't know the answer, so I thought I would just clarify here with you guys.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So if everyone's happy with the email, we'll just continue with what we had discussed before, relative information that is already on like the GRCS website. And I think, overall just provides quick and fast access for those who maybe just want to know what's going on. All right. And then, so if there's no other questions on that, we'll move on to the community forum piece.
Actually, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So in terms of, we were talking about meeting packets and what we can include and what the district, or Chris, if you can, we're talking about maybe having like a packet for the public that we could share potentially out, like a drive or.
Right, what we can do is the board packets. We will, you can have a link to the websites that people can find the board packets. So that's what we'll do as opposed to down there. So we'll just direct everybody towards there where you have the minutes, the agendas, as well as the board packets.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So there will typically be a month lag because of when the official minutes are approved. So what we'll do is wait till the official minutes are approved. Once the official minutes have been approved, then we'll upload the minutes, the recording, as well as the packet.
So it's going to be a month behind?
Yes.
Okay. What about principal reports? Is that also a month behind?
That could be in board packets as well.
So I know we currently, so in this last email we sent out, and by the way, if you guys want to be included on the email, you can subscribe through your pages or just subscribe, ask us and we'll subscribe you. We linked to the principal's report folder on the GRICSU webpage. So that'll always be a month behind until minutes are approved.
What we would what we like to do is have the board packet would have the principal reports as well as superintendent's report, have all that information would be in that packet that public could, access.
Yeah,
So it would be one document we scan, so you just scroll all the way through from, that. Obviously, there's information that's, if there's personnel information, we're gonna place that in there.
Yep.
There'll be things that we'd have to take out. But we did speak with our attorney, but 90% of what's in a board packet is public information that public can access and can see. So at any time, many members of the public can reach out to us and say, can I get a copy of this material?
Right.
We provide that from. What we're looking to do this year is on that same side where they get the agendas and minutes, it also would be board, like board materials. And that would be where they'd access the packet.
Yeah.
So, and the principal board would be just part of that.
so I love the information. My concern is that if we have to wait till the minutes are approved, then we can't give the public like the information that we have at these meetings. They have to wait a whole month. Are there?
You can attend the meeting.
You're right, that's
Right,
true.
That's true. I mean, I think it's one of the things, people, people could reach out to the Corey and Carol request a principal report, but I think, part of the reason why we have that month lag is just because of, we look at the open meeting law
Right,
and when the recordings are posted are after the official minutes. So we would then upload everything that's part of that meeting at that same time. We wouldn't upload anything prior to that. So if we put the board packet in prior to the official minutes being approved, we just want to make sure that everything is in alignment.
okay. In terms of, I'm sorry to drag this on, but in terms of principals reports, there's a folder that I found on the Crixie website and folders for both schools. And we sent out a link to that principal's report. So granted, there's no principal reports this month, but in future months, if I link to that drive, would that be the
I
most
talked to
current?
Christine to make sure the principal reports appear in those folders. So
Okay,
if you're linking to, to be honest, majority of the information that people would want to see would be principal reports or
yeah,
something else. So we can make sure that that drive is updated.
okay,
Prior. Christine, who's our executive assistant, receives all the information, could easily just drop that into that folder.
okay,
And
So it won't have a month
It'll be part of
lag.
the board packet, but that would not be part of that month lag.
okay, perfect.
So we can make sure that is ready to go. So as soon as, we receive them from Carol Corey, we could drop those in. So-
Great. Yeah, I think that's great information that people would want to see.
I know that was one of the things that we talked to, all community members in other districts is there has been a bit of frustration, but there is that lag, but it's because of, we can't upload the recording until the official meetings have been approved, and there is that lag. And so if we're all materials associated with those minutes would wait until, but the press reports, they said something which we could do right away.
Yeah, I thought that, we have a drive for our materials that we can access and that a resource for public materials would be just as easy, just to, drag and drop the materials that would go.
Correct. So what'll happen is, we have a board packet that Christine will scan in. So the reason why she doesn't do this beforehand is because there are changes up till the very last minute, with personnel. So tomorrow morning, Christine would take a well-trained board packet, would just scan that into one long PDF. So when someone would go and access that, it would be, because when a board goes in the folder, they see 20 different documents, which is, it's not the most ideal, but there's a reason why we have to do it, because of the fluidity of information and content. So if you scan it as one document, then at that time, that would be just dragged into the, that folder right next to the agendas, minutes, and then board materials are all right there. Okay. We're not trying to make it, we're trying to be transparent, but there is that reason why we have the materials and the minutes at the same time. It's just because that's where the information came from. So.
Gotcha.
But the principal reports, I will make a note of that. I'll talk to Christine tomorrow. I'll just make sure that those are in there right away.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. And that'll begin in September when we have a principal. Thanks, man.
Yep. Is that all?
I think so.
All right. So we'll move on to the community forum part. So we have, for this meeting in the drive, there's the information that we requested a few months ago. on the consolidation scenarios. And so Lewis has prepared this analysis for us on the three scenarios that we asked for, or four scenarios, I should say. And ultimately what we need to do is decide this information we're going to bring to our community forums in September and October. And, you know, how it's going to impact the discussion and basically what we want to present to the communities. Has everyone had a chance to review that? I think it pretty simple. Discussion, questions?
Yeah, Eric. So when I was going over like the scenario 3, which was to close one school, would we potentially be thinking about fitting the remainder of the Wells Springs students in the other school that remained open? I'm not sure. I feel like that's like a little bit misleading. I mean, we could potentially, actually, fit all of our students into one school or the other.
So I can explain. So as Lewis and I, when we went through the scenarios, you're right, Mary, this would be whether, the cost implications reflects if, we're to close down Middletown Springs and all students would then go to Wellsville, or Berkeley, if we close out Wellsville, all students would then be in Middletown, right? And that's why there's a bit of a range, but it would be, closing down one school and then placing all students and staff in the one school facility. And there's a range, obviously, because as we look at operational costs, you look at, maintenance, wear and tear. So a lot of other factors in there.
Right. Right. So in your discussion with Lewis, we potentially can fit all students in one school or the other.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think based off of how the community forums work out, the next step would be to go, would go from there. And that's kind of the whole point of this is we have these scenarios. We really need to know which one to put our effort and focus on. And that's where a lot of those questions are going to be answered. Like, is it possible to even, like in that scenario, combine all the students into one school? And so there's going to be work involved with that. But so, I think as far as the community forums go and what we want to basically ask of the community is, yeah, Meredith?
No, you should finish. Am I still breaking up?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. I and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but I didn't really think about this till now. There's another scenario that we haven't really approached, or maybe you have, which would involve the communities not being district anymore and closing one school and having full choice in another.
Oh, you cut out on that for a second.
And you can't hear me?
You kind of right as you're getting to the point, you kind of right at that moment in time.
Okay, I'll write it.
It happens randomly, so. Something about tuitioning students somewhere. Close one school.
Yeah, I didn't write it really well.
So Meredith, you're saying that a scenario is if, we'll just say, if Wells were to close down and say that they want to become a tuition community, that Middletown Springs would then stay in operation, and what that scenario would be, is that you're suggesting, or vice versa? Okay.
A good idea.
Can you hear me any better now? No?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I just took my earbuds out. Maybe they were conflicting with the microphone. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
I know that's a whole
That's
other
a-
can of worms.
I mean, that's a whole nother thing. And then, it's like, why have half of your or depending on which, it was one town students completely fully tuition somewhere else when we have the capability of, at least, educating our students? Why tuition them out and pay, that, whatever community is going to be affected by that, they're going to be, I don't know, essentially what? Almost, I don't know, non-operating. I don't know how that would,
One community would be non-operating, but I see with what you're saying, it probably would not save us more money.
What if-
It's all in that lower category of savings because of the cost of tuitioning.
yeah.
What if it was just across the two communities, school choice, and then one building?
So I think these are scenarios that obviously I could go back and speak with legal, look at, just to see if you, since it is a district, and ask you if you can split that up into, not, so I think there's things that this is a scenario that the board would like to consider. We could, for a community forum, do a little more research and, look into this to see what if this is a feasible option or realistically an option. I don't have the answers to that tonight. I mean, so I'd have to do research into that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. There's a lot of ifs and what ifs, and I don't see, to me, I don't see how it works, but I think that's where the conversation's at now. Like, personally, that does seem like another scenario, just generally thinking about it without thinking all the technicalities that it could bring, but I don't foresee it, in my opinion, as an option, a scenario to bring to a community forum, just because, we have the schools, we have the capability to educate our students within both towns.
So I guess I'm just concerned that could be a question raised at the community forum. Even if
Yep.
we don't bring it, we should have some sort of discussion like we're having right now. So we're ready to at least address it at some level.
So Meredith, if the board would like, I could do the research, and for the September meeting, I can say if this is even an option to be considered.
Right. I
It
think
be a simple no, that this is not possible, and then that's the end of that discussion. Or
perfect.
if it is possible, then here's what they have to do, and then the board could then decide if they even want to consider moving forward. Okay.
I think understanding the legal aspect and the district, dissolution and all of that would be a good way to sort of end that option. And I'm just, concerned, and I'm not concerned, but this is what I'm hoping we will get, input. People will be interested in putting forward their ideas about this.
Mary?
Yeah, just real quickly, like when I bring it up to other people in the community, they kind of raise the fact of hey, Mayor, aren't we usually seeing a surplus each year? And that's been the case for, at least 2 years, maybe more, maybe less. And I'm not sure exactly the 2024 numbers. that will come out. So I'm just wondering like how we approach that situation or, that conversation when it comes up as far as, saving money, which is, obviously on everyone's mind, but yeah, we're running a surplus each year.
So Mayor, I think that you're right. I think one of the points that you could bring up and discuss is that as we move out of ESSER funding, I think the past, during COVID, when we had, ESSER funds, we were able to create surplus monies in a lot of areas because we were able to kind of pay for that with ESSER funds. And at the end of September, when those funds go away, we should see those larger surpluses diminished greatly because we are back to an active budget where there are a lot of things that we were able to pay for, whether it be staffing or resources or programming past 3 years, 3.5 years, with ESSER funds that we no longer have those funds available. So that's where you see a more normal budget return in terms of surplus moving forward. But it has created this false sense of a surplus, and it has been in all of our districts, and not just the SU, but other school districts as well, because of ESSER funds and have that availability to, put some money away for capital maintenance or other items. So, but those monies expire September 30th.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Chris. And so what you're saying is like, if we went back, pre 2021, 22, we wouldn't necessarily see any surplus for Wellspring.
Well, you may see a small surplus. This depends year to year, because when you budget, obviously there's some guesstimation there, but you should not see large, amounts of money that you'd see, say, in ESSER. You may see like a $30,000 surplus, which is not a lot during a normal year. During COVID, we're seeing upwards of $150,000 because of ESSER funds. We're able to pay for some things that allow us to put some money away. But we didn't want to budget with ESSER because we knew then we'd be facing that financial cliff where we had to put that money back into the budget when ESSER funds went away. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So like when I'm looking at this, like Wellsprings consolidation scenario analysis, the cost implications, like the savings range, is each year, or is that just the initial chunk that we should see? And then once like the implication is the scenario has been completed, then we, kind of go back to baseline.
Well, I think you could look at it, obviously, once you move to that, whatever, if you would move from our current scenario, you'll see that initial, savings, but then obviously you're budgeting whatever that scenario is. But if you look at the cost from now, say that for the next 10 years, either operating our schools in the current formats, here's what that cost would be. But if we shifted, you can look at a cost per cost that would make sense. So it depends on how you're really looking at the savings. So the cost to operate 2 schools for the next 10 years, this is what it would be. But scenario 1, here's what that savings would be as opposed to operating in our current format.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris.
Meredith?
So I think the question we're going to get is, what does that savings mean to the taxpayer? Like, does that make sense?
Yes. And I think that's something which we could have that information as well when we look at.
Because I look at these savings and, on our $5+ million budget, I'm not so sure they're that significant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that in the past, and we've looked at right around $120,000 is equivalent to like 1%. So I think I'll make a note of that. And when we look to go to the community forums, we can have these hard numbers as well as look at, what that would mean for a taxpayer in terms of, their tax bill and percentage wise.
Yep.
But it's also, money we can reinvest for the students. So this doesn't necessarily need to be returned to the taxpayer in full. We could use some of this money to, for example, hire a language teacher, which we don't have anymore. And Meredith, I know you've said before that that's critically important in early education to have that exposure for languages. So we could use the money towards, student development and those goals. It doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna pull this out of the system and put it back in the taxpayers. It can, it can facilitate us doing more development with the
Correct.
students.
Correct. Like if you look at scenario 2, if the range is $100,000, $240,000, it could be like I said, if you wanted to add like I said, 1 FTE and that's it. Well, you could look at a potential $20,000 to $160,000 savings
Right.
based on that. So I think it gives that opportunity, flexibility while still saving money.
Yeah.
For those who look at strategic plan and adding programming, but it gives you an idea of what you have to
Yeah.
save.
So
You're right, there's flexibility there.
So seeing the dollar amounts, I can see how people would immediately go to, okay, that's a savings, but yeah, I do want to also to remind people that we're also looking at this in the sense of like, how can it be beneficial? So part of that was if we have potentially even larger class sizes could be potentially better or a benefit. Having more money to develop more programs could be a benefit. So this isn't necessarily all just to cut funds, although we're limited to the levers we can pull to do that. And this is certainly helps us, cut back where we need to. But that ultimate outcome, right, is the best product for our students.
So, Matt, one of our strategic plan goals is to expand, extracurricular enrichment programming for our students across the SU. And the question that, say, like Quarry Valley is wrestling with is to do this in, say, their current format, which is 3 high schools. To do that in each one of those high schools, there's a lot of cost.
Yep.
And so in order to get to where they need to be, there are some discussions that need to be had in terms of, do we invest that money into these 3 high schools, or we look at another configuration? That's a big discussion. I think the same thing here is, if we want to look at the board, wants to talk about as we expand our programming for our students, with extracurricular academics, how do we do that within our current formats? What would be the cost scenario that, or if we look at one of these other scenarios, can we provide our students with better quality education, higher access to programming, and still reduce cost? But I think that's a good discussion during the community forum to have around that. And I think that's what these scenarios allow the board to do and the community to do, is engage in that. Where I think at the end of the day, we all want each one of our kids to have high quality education, access to great teachers, great programming, but how do we do that and still being fiscally responsible?
And I guess another point I want to make with the dollars here is that I don't foresee that this would be an immediate savings. There's going to be a cost to implementing this, right? So if we were to do a scenario 2, 3, or 4, I'm assuming that year when we started that scenario, that there would be a cost involved in like making that transition.
I don't.
Like
I don't know.
for example, if you're closing a school, maybe cost of listing that school or any maintenance or upkeep, or how that transition happens, or maintenance on it as it's not being. Is that our responsibility?
Well, I think that's a conversation, honestly, as you look at if the board or the community ever would decide to say close a school, the next question that the community and the board have to decide is, well, what do we do with this facility? What are the next steps? And sure, and I think those are questions, like I said, I don't have the answer to tonight.
Yeah.
That would be, and as we go further down the road, we can get questions to answer that.
Okay.
And I think back to our conversations that we've had over the last year too, and there's a huge financial component to this, to be fiscally responsible. But one thing we talked about too is being able to eliminate combined classes as well. Going to that higher quality education for students, even if it was to with scenario 2, combining all the kids with the same grade and splitting it between schools. So I don't know. I think there's an educational component to this as well. And then, like you say, potential opportunity for those students too. So I don't think everything should be based solely on money. But all right, so as far as the scenarios go, Meredith, you want to add a fifth scenario for our public forums, correct? Barring the information we get for our September meeting, right?
At least a consideration of a fifth scenario. And again, I think it's more like I want to be prepared for, as much as we can so that we can, discuss relatively, not accurate information, but realistic information.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to come up. Someone can have a really good idea, and I think the last thing we want is to say, well, we never considered that, right?
And we may have to do that.
Yeah.
But, a few more cards in our hand would be helpful.
All right. Anything else for the scenarios? I think I think we have a lot to talk about as far as with the community about this. So the next thing Matt kind of brought up earlier too, in regards to the community forums, is the messaging that we need to present. So if we want to get as much input as possible, so we really need to have a message from the board, and we really need to put it out there. The free press, like everything out there, to invite people to our community forums, because if people don't know about it, then it's going to be really hard to really gauge what the greater community wants. That makes sense. So try and pull it up. I don't know if Amanda wrote something that we could use for messaging for the community forums. See if I can find it really quick. There it is. And I'll share it. Come on. All right. Sorry, this is really slow. There we go. Okay. Might be hard to see, but Okay. So I think whatever we put out, whether it goes out to, like in the school publications, Front Porch Forum, it's all got to be the same. We have to have one message for everything.
Yeah, actually, if I can chime in, Eric, when I talk to like parents and friends about this, the first question is like why? Like why are we asking these questions? Like why are we, like what was the and the antithesis of of coming to this question as a board? So they're like, it is state funding being cut? Like, are we, like there's lots of different questions about like kind of why the board is taking this up in the first place. And I'm just wondering, like, I'm, obviously new to the board. Maybe you guys have talked about this before, but I think that might be, one of the first questions people might ask.
Yeah, no, we had I'm trying to see if I can find it because I don't have it memorized, but we did have like a why statement that we come up with a while back. Of course, I don't have it here, but basically it just comes down to fiscal responsibility and exploring academic opportunities for students. So I'll see if I can find it later, but we did come up with like a statement of why we were doing this. And again, we've talked about it consistently over the last year. So it's in the minutes, it's in the recordings, and it's available out there for specificity if anyone likes to go back and review it. But
I think an important thing to remember is our diminishing population and student population in particular. That's not changing. And so we're trying to look forward. I know the data came out. We've done an amazing job. Our central office has done an amazing job with our budgets. I did have a community member at the polls yesterday ask us, how did we do that? How did we not raise taxes? And as Chris has said, a lot of this has been ESSER fund hangover, and incredible diligence in not creating programs that we couldn't sustain out of that ESSER money, which in my opinion is largely what happened to many of the districts that blew their budgets way out of the proportion. And it's reality. Unfortunately, it's the buildings are becoming more and more expensive, and we have fewer and fewer students to fill them, and so each of those students essentially costs more.
Yep. Well said. All right. Did anyone have any particular thoughts on the messaging at all? Because I think we want to start, and I would imagine we could finalize something too for September and still get stuff out there for the community forums. But this is just to kind of share with the board because I think, like Matt was talking about earlier, when we talk about the email communications, other than regular, public information that's linked in those emails, any kind of special communications, really need kind of board approval because it is a board message and not, um, created individually or something like that. So, did you have a chance to read through what she had shared?
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay.
Fortunately, I don't have internet, so I can't bring it up, but that's too far away. I recall like yeah, I'll take a voucher.
One thing we talked about too, Meredith, was what we're going to call it. I think steering away from consolidation, like what were we going to call these community forums? I don't think we really settled on anything before, but I don't know if that's something we want to bring up now so we can have. This also says childcare will be available. I don't know if that. I don't know about that. Who's doing childcare?
That's the thing I brought up when I saw
I
it.
know.
I think we were thinking about potentially approaching teenagers, but I don't know. We've done this before. We have provided childcare.
Okay.
Yeah, I to Eric, honestly, I think it's important. Even if half the people take us up on it, it's the fact that we're offering, an hour of undivided attention, to the adult time, and your kids are, in the library hanging out with, kids, or, or staff or, whatever it is. But I think if we want to engage the community, that's important.
Okay. So, so this would be a board initiative, right? Someone want to take on this, reach out to folks about doing some childcare. I don't know how else it would be done. That's why I'm asking.
Right. So Eric, like as a board, do we have any discretionary funds to go to, staff of, who are already fingerprinted and vetted, through Wells or Middletown Springs, to say like, if you want to stay, extra 2 hours, this is what, I'm not sure if we have that ability, but
I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to go about doing this. So
So one thought is actually to approach FFE to see if they might be a resource. Friends for Education at Middletown.
yeah, that's a great idea.
I believe we've tapped them before. It's been a long time, but
all right. Did someone want? I don't know. Did Mary? Did you want to reach out to them about it or?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can definitely send Ashley an email, and I'm on. I'll hop on the next monthly meeting and just say, our schools need us. Can we have volunteers?
Okay. Yeah, and that would be for both of them, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I think wasn't there? I don't know. Wasn't there like a one of the Pulteney teams.
The only basketball team.
Pulteney,
The girls.
is that something feasible in the summertime?
Oh,
Like-
I think absolutely.
I'm just wondering, because I know, and again, I'm just going off my recollection, because I know it was mentioned when we brought it up before, the daycare thing. I guess, how did we go about reaching out, like, with the school not being in session, you know, like,
Angie Hayes' husband, who's the coach, so I can make a connection with you if you want and decide. Excuse me, you would like
okay,
to
yeah.
do that.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, by the time
There may be
September,
other teams too, that
Yeah.
would be willing to do it.
okay,
I know those girls.
yeah, I don't know, that's why that's why I was like, that's why I was chuckling at this.
When these games.
Right.
So your high school, I mean, you're in the midst of soccer and football season, so just the availability of athletes might
Yeah.
be quite challenging.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I understand it's important, but as far as like this messaging goes though too, before we send anything out, like we got to have that figured out. So, I mean, if the board agrees that this is important for the community forums, then, you know, we should really clarify and make sure that it can be done. Otherwise, people won't be happy if they show up. All right, anything else? Oh,
Well, it sounds like, so based off of that, it sounds like we're not gonna be sending it at least this month. We'll be meeting again to review this.
yeah, I think if we can have some answers for our September meeting and actually approve, we can get this information out.
Okay.
And again, as far as the email communication goes, we could send out anything anytime. Like, so even if like, if it's before the September, obviously the September email communication will go out before our next meeting, right?
Yeah.
And then
But this special communication.
can go out after.
Will go after our
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
So, if we're delaying this, then maybe it might make sense to add that why statement, maybe at the top of this. I don't know,
Okay.
see what that looks like,
Yeah.
just to give people context of why we're doing it.
Yeah. Well, I'll find it. Shame on me for not having it memorized, but we had, what's that?
It's in the minutes.
Yeah. We had made that why determination a while ago. Mary?
Yeah, and like just really quickly, like the last time I talked to Scott, just about, facilities things, he was just like, I'm not sure if people realize that we have the two oldest buildings in the entire GRCSU. And I was like, okay, well that really, puts things into context. So, of our whole supervisory union, we have the two oldest, schoolhouses. So.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Well, we'll bring this back again in September and finish up these last two, or the scenario analysis and the messaging for our public forums coming up. Okay.
Eric, I'll also place the articles of agreements in the board packet, because I think the board should be familiar with Articles 4 and 5. As they talk about decision making, because Article 4 talks about, closing a facility, and Article 5 discusses the purchase and then sale of property while closing as well. So that should be part of the discussion in September as well.
Okay. Cool.
So I'll make sure it goes in board resource folder.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move on to new business, BizBit proxy. So we need just like last year, someone to vote on the insurance. On the, okay, so, this is going to be at the VSBA annual conference in the end of October. So we just need to basically appoint someone to be the delegate for the VSBIT. Excuse me. And Meredith, you said that you might be attending that as well.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I intend to attend the VSBA conference. Anyone else also? Just out of curiosity, like.
Quit screen sharing. Is it that and stop doing it? Quit screen sharing.
Is it in the drive?
No, no, I said you want, you're screen sharing this document still, so.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. Probably be up there the rest of the night. Okay, so, yeah, so I tend to go, so, so we just need a motion to appoint myself or, anyone else who wanted to be the delegate. It's really just about voting on, or just being the delegate for the insurance.
I'll make that motion for you to be the delegate.
Okay. All right, motion by Matt. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hi.
All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. All right, student representative liaisons was a conversation from our retreat meeting. So did everyone have a chance to review the SBA guide in the packet? Because see if I can find it here. There it is. The student voice. I know, Mary, you had brought this up before, and we were going to discuss it and see basically if we want to do this and have the means to do this. So open it up for discussion.
Yeah, so like, even if I went to, you know, the 5th and 6th grade teachers, you know, to kind of get their idea, I just thought it was a great thing that other school districts were doing as far as like getting community involved at an earlier age. But I know that it's another task that the teachers have to take on. So, you know, it's almost a pipe dream, but I think it's a good one. So maybe if, you know, even if we added like, you know, just task it for now and see where we are in the fall. That was just kind of my idea.
Yeah, well, if we go to page 4 on the guide, there's like a readiness assessment. I don't know, we could maybe just quickly kind of go through this really quick to see where we're at as far as, you know, this guide goes and what we're missing. What do folks think about that? Because I think,
Like it.
you know, I read through this, you know, I read through this document and I was like, there's a lot of good information in here. A lot of stuff I didn't even think about when it comes to student voice and student representatives. So, Let's see here. Does the board have the time and resources to make a commitment to effective youth representation? I guess it really depends. I mean, is it a priority or not? You know, you can make time if it's a priority and a commitment. So I don't know.
Yeah, like Eric, I want to say yes, and like I know I'm new, but like the community is not just our parents and our grandparents and our taxpayers. Like it's potentially like the fifth and sixth graders who are going to go on to other schools and yes, be more involved in that kind of yes, responsible. So, but yeah, so I was kind of thinking of like involving like the big kids and then having them talk to their parents and their grandparents and their neighbors and kind of just having that that coalescing of interest in the school board in general.
Okay. Has the board amended the bylaws or created policy stating that young people will be a permanent part of governing your organization? No. I mean, do we even need to do that? But
Well, do they have is the idea that they'll have a vote or?
I think, well, no, I mean, they couldn't have a vote. I mean, so I actually think there's a part in here in that somewhere, I believe, but my thought would be no. Is the board clear about why it's involving young people in governance?
Yeah.
And what would that be?
To get their voice and also to, like Mary just said, extend our community, make sure we're reaching out, hearing all voices.
Okay.
And also to nurture, I guess, the growth of that spirit of community engagement in the students.
I feel like we need to have it in a much less formal makeup than what this document suggests. I mean, number one, it's aimed for 9 to 12 graders. And we can't be expecting them to attend all of the meetings. And I almost feel like it should start out as a volunteer invitation kind of thing rather than an actual member. Because I think the teachers need to see if there really will be interest beyond one meeting. You know, for a sixth grader, I think developmentally that's a lot to be asking.
Yeah, yeah, I thought about that too, in terms of, the age group and I think that there would definitely need to be some sort of involvement at the school level. I mean, there's student councils in each school that, where does that fit in with, time commitment? So I don't know. I think, just kind of looking at this whole thing as structurally, like you said, how would this be done? And I was kind of hoping that this readiness assessment would kind of expose like what we're missing, where to go next from here. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah, has the board defined a selection process if appropriate? I don't know. So there's nothing, no, because there's a lot to cover here.
What I would say, what are we trying to get out of it as a board too? I understand the benefit for the student. The student voice, like what if there was like the, principal's report, then there's a student's report or something. I mean, it adds, there's like a fun element to it, but also like, I don't know, are we trying to get their concerns or hear their concerns about, I don't know.
Exactly.
And it's also kind of could be slippery if there's like, if they're coming to vent about something or personnel, that could be a tough one.
Matt, that's a very good point. I think as we look at a sixth grader, the same as a parent, and if a parent would come to the board with a complaint, typically there's a process that, the individual is supposed to go through, whether go to the classroom teacher, go to the building administrator, you go through those steps. And so would there be a student representative then bypass all those steps and go right to the board? I think there's a lot of discussion in terms of what that student representation consists of. Because that would be changing that process.
Yeah.
Put some guardrails on it. I mean,
Whatever the board, yeah.
it's a good reminder that we're here for the students to have them here. If there was something like in my mind, it would be like, could we have them start the meeting? Like be the one to say, we have a quorum and kick it off and then over to you. They'd start it off and then, there could be like that student report if they wanted to say something with appropriate guardrails on it. That could be like a small way in. It's sort of kind of mostly ceremonial, but could be fun to hear new voices and
Yeah, you're right. And I've thought about this too. What would we expect of a student representative? And I would imagine that, playground stories and lunchroom issues would be entertaining, but what does it bring? You know what I mean? Like, I think, like I mentioned before, there's a certain element of what are we asking the students to bring, and then if so, again, there would be an element done outside of the meeting to bring that forward. I just, looking at some of these, has the board defined a selection process? Is there a mentor or coaching system in place? Does the board have a system in place for youth representatives to train new youth representatives? We don't have any of that stuff in place. So we'd be basically designing this, right? And then, like Meredith talked about earlier, doing it as like a invitational volunteer basis, right? Obviously. So I think if we're going to move forward with this, we really have to figure out like a process and how it's going to work. Mary?
Yeah, so I just want to like reiterate like my whole point of like the whole idea was like their experience of either being a part of the board or being in front of the board or being privy to the board. Like, even as an adult, like I didn't really get that experience until, my 30s or whatever. So I think it's a great idea that if it's voluntary, it's voluntary. And also like, I don't think we have to like reinvent the wheel. I'm pretty sure like we can go to like other school boards or like, kind of like do some research about like how they incorporate, 5th and 6th graders on a very small level, not too intensive, how that may have happened in other areas and it was successful and like, people, were enjoy their experience. And it was just like the experience of like being, involved in the board, or just having the idea of like how a board operates, like, what the kind of legalities around it, like what does it look like? What does it sound like? I like when you talk, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I came from. What is an agenda? How do you follow it? Like that kind of thing. And then, just having them feel more involved. Just because we talk so much about community involvement, and honestly, at some point it's got to involve the kids, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm liking this idea more and more. And I think, if there's a rotating student, and let's say it's ceremonial, they come in, they maybe start the meeting, like I was saying, and then come to the student report, there could be a set of prompts, right? It could be your name, your grade, your school, and something you learned this month or something you learned this week. It could be like a set of questions that they could answer. And then that, I don't know, in turn, that could be in the curriculum somewhere, 5th and 6th grade, if you guys are talking about, I don't know, civics or something that can get incorporated, and you can rotate a student in. I don't know if that's beneficial, if this is beneficial at all, if this is just, towards their education, or if it's a silly idea, and if it's mandatory, what's the tax on the teacher? So in the time commitment after school, but something
Yeah,
that
I agree with you, Matt. Like honestly, like if we're thinking about consolidating schools to increase the, student experience, this is a very, very small start. Even if it's quarterly, every 3 months we have, a 5th or 6th grader. But so if we're really genuinely thinking about consolidating schools to increase, student experience, and we can't wrap our heads around, this small thing, even if it's not this year, maybe it's next year. I find it hard to imagine how we're gonna consolidate schools to increase student, experience. If we can't, maybe just, think about how this could be not necessarily, a troublesome or a bothersome experience, but just, something that might, we might try it. It might be great. If it's not, that's okay too. But, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Meredith?
I appreciate what Mary's saying, but I'm finding the tax on the educators and to be kind of onerous. If you've got student council and they're learning things like that, agendas and voting and all that sort of stuff that's going on, and if they want to attend a board meeting, I think that's a somewhat reasonable place to start. However, you're asking them, how are you having that? Are you volunteering parents to bring their kids to a meeting? You can't be asking the staff to do that. We're already paying a stipend for the groups that we have in place at the schools for governance, and I think you're talking about two entirely different things about changing the structure of our schools versus bringing students, 5th and 11 and 12-year-olds into a meeting um, on a regular basis. I don't understand that comparison at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I was saying is like, just if we're expanding the opportunity, 4 times a year that, a 5th or 6th grader could have and come and sit with us as a board member, or even like as a, someone who's just sitting into the board. it was just an idea I had because other school districts have done it and done it well, and they've had like great success with it. That's why I brought it to the board. So I know, so maybe it was a unfair, parallel between, expanding opportunities, with, with the school consolidation ideas. But, I think with new board members, the idea is bringing new ideas to the table. And that's kind of where I come from.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of successful, student council stuff, at the secondary level. But I haven't dug that much, but I haven't really seen a whole lot of it at the elementary level. And I think that's where, I initially got stuck on it too, back at, what was it, 2022 VSBA conference? I think that's the one. Meredith?
I believe we've done things with student council in the past, attending meetings and giving presentations on what they're doing and asking questions, but I guess I just don't see the board member aspect with a 5th and 6th grade, and it's certainly not just to start. So inviting student council to come in is a start. You've got to engage them. I just don't, it is onerous for the board members, and unless it's something Mary wants to take on, to add another item to our plate.
Could it be like, so if we made this strictly volunteer basis, and like I said, if we had these prompts that the student could answer, then providing the student came that day, whoever the student was, doesn't have to be the repeat student. They could have an opportunity to sit up here, come to the student portion of it. They can say their prompts and then get home early. They don't have to stay through the whole meeting. But could there be like a standing opening on the agenda in case a student wanted to show up? And it would be a way for the board members to get to know, the students in a little way.
I think that's a much more beneficial approach.
Okay.
For both sides, for both board members and our connectivity to the schools, and the students' opportunities, and from there it could grow. But I just, it's going to take people running with flags that aren't here yet.
Yeah, I like the idea of like student council as a whole invitation as well. Is there going to be student councils again this year? I mean, is it possible to see what interest there might be in something like this? Like once school starts, like, I mean,
Inviting students, or you would then require the staff member to be here as well, because
that's what I'm at. That's part of what I'm asking too, is like, obviously it's after, I think there would be, that's why I'm asking, like, would there be interest from students, right? There's students on student council that would be interested in this type of thing. And it kind of goes to that volunteer piece, and I don't know. And I wouldn't expect, anything right away because, school.
But as they're organizing, it's certainly something we could go and talk to them about.
I think more to fit in with the model that you guys were just talking about an open invitation,
Yeah.
and putting it out to the student council and explaining here's an opportunity, and leaving it as informal as that to begin with.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't put any additional responsibilities on whoever's leading student council. And it feels maybe a little less scary to kids.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that might be a good start, just to see where this can go, especially at the elementary level. So. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So moving on to school choice fair. We last discussed this at our retreat. I think the next step would be to determine how we want to proceed with this. Meredith?
Well, the last I remember was that we discussed having the administrators, whether it's through counselors at school or what, develop a timeline for when this would work, and then we need to reach out to the schools. It was, creating a fair essentially at one of the schools. I know we had that conversation some time ago, but
It was actually just a month ago.
no, but way before
Oh,
we discussed it as something we needed to talk with administrators about because it's their schedule.
yeah.
Is there a counselor that could take this on as a job?
We have one counselor between two schools right now, so.
Okay, and could this be a task for that counselor what are we talking about? 6 months from now, or?
So would it be possible for Carol, Corey, myself to kind of do a little research background and come to the board in September with a proposal, what this may look like?
Yeah.
That the board do. I think there's a lot of elements. So we down to one counselor across two buildings, and just, we look at timing, what kind of day may work. I think as we all discussed, I think we all felt this was a great idea to provide for our students, for our families. I think just looking at just the logistics of it, I think Carol, Corey really have to take a look at so then they can come back and to the board with some actual meat to something to discuss around this, as well as look at potential schools. And I think we had discussed that a late October or early November at the latest would be best for families, and be open to 5th and 6th grade, I do believe. So people can start doing their early research for 5th grade. Think about the 7th grade year.
okay. I'm fine with that. I think there's certain elements to this that I would imagine are complex, but I know that just based off our discussion, where previous discussion, Amanda pointed out that she tried to contact other schools and they were like, no, like they're basically like, yeah, just have your, so it's
Right, there's different, when schools reach out.
Yeah.
There's a different courtesy that's extended when the schools reach out as opposed to.
Yep.
A parent or a board member, someone who's outside of that.
Yeah.
Sphere of influence. Not to say that we can make any promises, 'cause I know that, some of these schools are busy during this time, but but I think that's something which we do a little research and then have that information for the board to.
Okay.
When this does happen, I've seen it happen, so. But I think they say, I think we all agree it was a great idea. I think our families and our community members would benefit from this.
Yeah. Another kind of community event as well, All right. Any other discussion on this? All right. Cool. So no executive session tonight. General public comment. Did any public tonight wish to speak? Again, if you want. All right. Our next meeting, September 14th. Is that the right date?
These are new for facility committee on the 14th as well.
Yeah, yeah, there is. I'll let George know because he had asked me. No, that's September 11th, not 14th. Glad I caught that. Who would have caught it anyway? Well, today's the 14th. So. All right. Yeah, I'll reach out to him too about that. And yeah, and Mary, did you get that facility meeting?
Yes, I have it down. Yep. Thanks, Eric.
All right. That concludes our business. Is there a motion to adjourn at 7:31?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Matt. Thanks, Matt. I was waiting to see how long it would, all right. All right. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.